I am an iPhone fan through and through. If you look at any of the videos on this channel, you'll notice it's mostly speaking about Apple and iPhones and iOS. But I've decided to flip to the Galaxy Z Fold Flip for good. Let's just start this by saying I have used Android phones in the past, but I've always found them to be a little bit clunky and just not as good as an iPhone. But for the past 2 weeks, I've had the Galaxy Z Fold 5 and I've been using it every single day as like my main phone. I went on holiday and I used the Galaxy Z Flip 5 for absolutely everything. So Google Maps, Spotify, Uber, literally everything. And I am not going back to an iPhone. I absolutely fell in love with using the Galaxy Z Fold 5, and I think one of the main reasons that I really enjoyed using it was that it was fun. Every time I got it out of my pocket, I enjoy using the Z Fold 5. And I've said for a while that iPhones are just a little bit boring. They give you everything that you possibly might need, but it's a bit boring, and boring for some people with an iPhone is absolutely fine. They just want to use a phone, so they pick an iPhone and it does what they need. But for someone that enjoys tech, enjoys phones, I want to be excited by a phone, and that is exactly what the Z Flip 5 does. And what usually takes me back to using an iPhone is that old adage of it just works. But for me this year, the 14 Pro Max didn't just work anymore. It had bugs. The battery life was horrendous. The cover display on the Z Fold 5 is an absolute game changer. So I used the Z Flip 4 last year, and you still had to open it every time you wanted to use it, but now you can do a lot of what you need without having to even open it up. And yet typing is quite difficult, so replying to a message isn't that easy. But using it for things like Uber or just being able to check where you're going on Google Maps, for me, not having to open that phone up and have a big screen and just have it in your hand is really nice. And when I was away on holiday, the thing that I used that Z Flip 5 for the most was checking that my Ubers were going in the right direction. And it might sound silly, but that is something that I needed to use it for, and it was really nice and easy. Just being able to quickly check the weather and have a glance at the time is so handy, and because I don't have to open the phone up to do it, I don't get distracted by looking at other apps and wasting hours a day scrolling endlessly on things like TikTok. And I know that you can watch things like Netflix and YouTube on the cover screen, but I haven't got to that point yet, and I'm not sure I ever will because it's just maybe a little bit too small. Talking of small though, that is what I like the most about this phone. It is pocketable. You can hold it in one hand and do everything you need to do, whereas the iPhone 14 Pro Max, it's big, it's clunky, it's heavy, whilst this, the Z Flip 5, is kind of the perfect size. I always have one big complaint when I go over to a Samsung phone. So if I use a Google Pixel, I love stock Android, but I always found One UI to be horrible and clunky and just a bit of a mess. But I'm going to hold my hands up here and say I was wrong. Actually, One UI is actually pretty good if you do a little bit of tweaking. I think out of the box, I don't enjoy it, but I spent a few hours just getting rid of things like edge panels, moving that brightness slider down, adding widgets, making Spotlight search appear from a swipe down, and after a couple of hours of just playing with it, you can kind of make it how you want it. And I think there's a lot you need to do to get it working how you want it. But I suppose that's the good thing about it. It's not just stuck to one way of working like iOS is. I actually enjoyed messing around with it and just making it feel how I wanted it to feel. And I've made it feel a little bit like iOS, which might kind of defeat the object, but it means I enjoy using the phone. Right, now let's talk about that flipping that you have to do every time you open and close the phone. And I actually really enjoy doing it. But you do need two hands. You can't just do it like a one-handed flip as you might have been able to do with old flip phones, but it just doesn't get annoying. I like flipping it open and close, and it just makes this phone fun. Some people just want a normal phone, and that is absolutely fine. And I like the idea though of, sit the phone down, make food, and just watch YouTube videos on it like this. It's really handy. Or sometimes just even holding it like a little camcorder when you're filming just adds that little bit of uniqueness to it. And it's weird, I like people seeing me flip open the phone and close it and all that stuff because people are interested in it, and it's just something that people don't see that often. Right, I mentioned how good the Z Flip 5 is, but there's still some problems with it. And the main thing is the cameras. My favorite thing about an iPhone is that it just has incredible cameras and unbelievable video, and the Flip 5 doesn't. And that's one of the sacrifices you have to make when you take on a folding or a flipping phone. The camera is okay, like it's fine, but I know for the same price I can go from okay to unbelievable with an iPhone. There isn't really any zoom options on that main camera. You have an ultra wide and a main lens, and that's about it. And I really missed having that telephoto lens, especially when you're on holiday and you know you need to zoom in on a couple of things. The quality of the photos are maybe a little bit less than what I want or what I'm used to on my iPhone, but I mean, when will I really look at them again? And it's hard because I know that there's a better camera in my pocket for the same price, so that's something you kind of have to just have a trade-off with. The video is better than it has been on some of the older flip phones, but like, it's kind of mid-range. Stabilization again is fine and quality is fine, but there isn't any zoom, and things like portrait video don't really work as well as I think they should. Where I use the iPhone, it just hits every single time. For me, that's probably the biggest negative of the whole phone, but you know, going to a flipping or folding phone, you're going to get less camera quality. However, let's stick on this being semi-positive because the battery life for the Z Flip 5 has actually been really good. It's matching pretty much exactly what I got from that 14 Pro Max, and that's a big thing for me. I tend to have been getting around about 4 hours screen on time, which I feel like is absolutely fine. And I was using Google Maps almost always on holiday, and I never really ran out of battery, so it would get to the end of the day being pretty low, but it would still last me that entire day. And quickly, just on Google Maps, oh, it's horrible. I missed Apple Maps so much when I was trying to get around. Google Maps is old, it's clunky, and it's not very easy to follow. Apple Maps is so much better. But I have really enjoyed using this phone. It's those little things that you forget about, like that reverse wireless charging, having Google Assistant as my assistant rather than Siri, and the fact that I have 512 gigabytes of storage on this, where, you know, the same price on an iPhone, 128 gig. And the reason that I'm sticking with that Z Flip 5 is because I just don't feel like I'm really missing out on stuff. You know, things like AirDrop, yes, that might become annoying, but it's fun, it's exciting. The crease on the phone doesn't bother me at all. You do notice it's there, but it's, you know, it kind of comes with having a folding phone. And the biggest thing for me is I enjoy using that new cover display because it actually saves me from going on apps like TikTok and Instagram and Twitter for hours because I don't need to open the phone. Most of the stuff I need to do, I can do on that cover display. So I've gone all in on that Galaxy Z Flip 5. The iPhone is done for me for now. And I say for now, because there is a new iPhone coming in just a couple of months. But until then, the Galaxy Z Flip 5 is going to be the one that I walk around with in my pocket.